Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 24 of the Survival Project. Today's guest is Joe Forde, who's a clinical hypnotherapist, a breathwork practitioner, and nervous system educator. Today, we're going to dive into how the breath affects the nervous system, the difference between upregulating and downregulating, why so many of us get stuck in stress mode, and how simple daily resets can help us feel calmer, clearer, and more in control. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, anxious, dysregulated, or like your mind is constantly racing, because I know I have, this episode is packed with practical tools and insight. So let's get into it. Joe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for asking me on.
So could you tell us, Joe, a little bit about the work you do?
Yeah, in a nutshell, most of my work is related to helping people to make lasting changes in their lives. Those changes can show themselves in different areas. Sometimes it might be a change in how they respond to something, or that could be a fear or a phobia, and also it could be changing a habit. Or a change in how we're feeling. When we look at it an awful lot of the time, we'd say the quality of our life is generally how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis. So I'm in this work for approximately 15 years now, and over those 15 years I've been kind of building my toolbox of tools to be able to help people in those ways. The most common area I would work with, would say, would be people with anxiety or panic. They would want to learn some self-regulation tools as well. We'd say how to self-regulate. And then the other aspect of the work, we'd say, would be people might have some habits that aren't really helping them in their day-to-day lives. We'd say, and that could be to stop smoking, or we'd say weight loss, emotional eating, things like that. You know what I mean? But I suppose it all kind of feeds back to how we're feeling and how we can regulate ourselves on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And I know you have a lot of skills in your toolbox. I know I've been with you for a lot of breath work and hypnosis. Can you dive into kind of how they work to kind of coexist together and the other things that you can offer?
Yeah, you like that. We'd say I'm mainly known for my work with clinical hypnotherapy, and I have other modalities that I add to that. We'd say NLP and QTT and some energy work and stuff like that. And lately, we'd say we've been doing a lot. We'd say with breath work. Even in the early days with hypnosis, breathwork was introduced in it as a way of actually helping to just get somebody into a more relaxed state in order to be able to induce that state of hypnosis, we'll say, to do the change work. In the hypnosis training, it wasn't very much explained, and it was just through doing different workshops and stuff like that that I got to understand a lot more about how there was our breath has such an influence on our nervous system and our ability to actually down-regulate. From there, I suppose I just got more curious, really, and started using some certain techniques myself, and then developing it more. I'm a very curious kind of a person. I like to know how things work. I'd say I would have delved into, we'd say, the mechanics of breath work as well. How they work together really is they kind of worked hand in hand, and an awful lot of the time the breath work side of things is like the toolbox that I can teach people as well. So they have tools themselves in conjunction with maybe using self-hypnosis, which I also teach people. We say how to do that generally using audios that I would record for people. When a person starts to understand how their mind works, how their breath works, and how they can actually use it in conjunction with each other, and like that, have developed their own toolbox, so that after we've done the change work, or we've done some work or emotional work, we'd say, in a session, that people have their own tools, techniques that they've developed as well, so that they can practice or they can use in their day-to-day life.
And I know with yourself, we did the somatic breath work. I know there's a lot of different modalities or different types of breath work at the moment. With the somatic, is there one particular that you find, is it kind of just down to preference and finding like which shoe fits best? Or if someone is interested in trying out some breath work, would you say to dive into a few of them? Or is there any from your own experience you find as a good gateway into it?
The thing is, there's lots of different gateways into it. The somatic work, we'd say, is very, very powerful. It's very enjoyable to do because it's done with music. I think the most important thing is to know the structure of how our respiratory system works as well, and why we would use a certain breathwork exercise for a particular reason. And I think that's the difference. And an awful lot of the time, people can be using certain exercises, and exercises and our daily breathing pattern, they're two different things completely. Because we do an exercise for a particular result, but that doesn't mean that we should be breathing in that way every minute of the day either. And sometimes that can be a problem. I've come across, which was Wim Hof could be very, very popular, we'd say, in the breathwork modalities. But like that, we'd say Wim Hof breathing isn't the way you would breathe on a day-to-day basis. It's a breath that you'll do for a particular reason, and in that particular reason for him is, we'd say that he designed it to create a temporary state of hyperventilation, to be able to change the pH in the blood, and to also, it's have an uplifting feeling. It's important for people to understand why they're doing a certain breath work, but then we'd say it's important for people to have the basics right. And I suppose it's like the foundation of a house. If you don't have a good foundation, it doesn't matter really what you put on top of it. You know what I mean? If the foundation is shaky, I suppose the most important thing is for people to understand how their respiratory system works, how it influences their nervous system, and how you can use it to have more energy, alertness, and focus, or you can use it more commonly, we'd say, that people would know it for, would be, say, to downregulate, to relax, to help with sleep. But depending on how we breathe, we will influence different sides of the nervous system, and that's an important aspect of it as well. I often say it's a bit like the tracking being off in your car. It doesn't stop the car from running, and if you drive the car today, it's not going to be a major issue for you. It might just make it a bit more uncomfortable. But 12 months down the road, did you see the effects of it? We'd say when you go for the NCT and there's wire on the inside of the tire, and that's a bit like, we'd say, in our breath. If we're inefficient breathers, it isn't something that's going to stop us today, or we mightn't even feel that much different in the moment. We might feel a bit more stressed or stuff like that, but it's over a period of time where it'll have an impact as well.
When you say they're different sides of the nervous system, is that like parasympathetic versus sympathetic?
Yes. So like that, we'd say we have the sympathetic and we have the parasympathetic side. Our nervous system is designed to protect us. It's designed for survival, really. And both sides are favouring survival. We'd say one is the fight or flight to protect us. The other one is rest and digest, for us to recuperate. And if we didn't rest or we didn't digest, we wouldn't survive either. So like that, both sides of the nervous system are working all the time. If it's a case that we are spending too much on one side of the nervous system, it doesn't serve us. And I suppose a lot of time people say, well, can we get too much rest and digest? Well, we possibly can. We can go into a very down-regulated state, which would help us on the road to feeling down or unmotivated or depressed. And at that stage, we have to use a different type of breath work to get us up out of that. But if we were highly anxious, stressed, and stuff like that, we couldn't use that same breath work to do that. You know what I mean? And the other aspect of it as well is they've kind of come out now and they've done a lot of research, and they've seen that people's breathing patterns are very unique to them as well. They can have similar breathing patterns, but it's nearly like a thumbprint or a fingerprint that we develop a particular breathing pattern that's unique to ourselves. So it's very hard to prescribe, we'll say, one particular exercise. Now there is the general ones, we'd say, that will work in a certain way, but like that, it's important for people to understand the mechanism and how they work, so that they can alter it and change it so it suits themselves as well. And I think that's an important part of it, because sometimes we'd say some of the claims can be quite exaggerated as well. We'd say, like, if you do this one breath work, it's going to be X, Y, Z, and it's going to do this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, that mightn't suit everybody as well. So it's important to get a baseline of where you're at, and then adjust, we'd say, what you're doing accordingly.
Definitely, there's an awful lot of exaggerated and even nonsense, I'll call it, out there about breathwork at the minute, and there's a real hype around it. Like, you're seeing a lot more stuff online, and also in the same sense, you're seeing a lot of people who would be having these big traumatic releases screaming onto Instagram and stuff like that. When it comes to breathwork and people are seeing a lot of this stuff online, they might be thinking, what's real, what's exaggerated? Can you actually go into that level of release, or is that just more kind of people acting for social media?
Yeah, I would say that both is true. There's some acting for social media, and we'd say there's some that will take that portion of an 8-hour workshop and just keep playing that on social media as well. We can have those what we call kind of cathartic releases, we'll say, with breath work. Now, sometimes we say it'll be combined with some somatic movement and things like that as well, where the energy is built up, so that energy starts to move. And we say any emotional release is energy in motion. Sometimes we say it can be combined with some, like I'm saying, somatic exercises as well that will induce our natural release mechanism in the body, which would be tremoring or shaking, things like that. And like people can reach altered states as well. And there has been, particularly the breath work that I teach, well, one of the breath works I teach anyway, the Soma breath, we'd say they have done some work with Cambridge University to compare, we'd say, using breath work, comparing it, we'd say, with using psychedelics, and they found that there was similar effects. It's called breath work for a reason. There is work involved as well, and not always will everybody have an experience like that. A lot of the time, that if you had 20 people, there might be one person or a few people that might have that experience and other people mightn't, you know what I mean? It all depends on the intention of a workshop as well. If it's a case that everybody goes in with the intention of having a big emotional release, what you'll find is that possibly will happen as well, because the more we're focused in an area, the more we're going to induce that particular reaction. The theme of a workshop as well, the other activities that are involved in a particular retreat or workshop that will induce a reaction like that. But the important thing about it is that there's safety taken into account as well, and that people know how to actually self-regulate and down-regulate. That if it's a case that something, if they feel like some panic coming on or something like that they know what to do to be able to regulate that, and that there's support in place in these events as well, where somebody can get assistance. I would have done a good bit of training around being trauma informed. I do work quite a bit on one-to-one with people, helping them with trauma. I'm quite confident, we'd say, to be able to work in a group. Then it does have to be handled with care as well. It's a very powerful modality, and it's a very powerful thing we have built into us. It needs to be respected as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's no one in the world really that doesn't have some form of trauma that would manifest from different things in their life. I know the listenership to this podcast with many people who've suffered with chronic health issues. For someone who it wants to kind of get into it, they know that their nervous system is dysregulated from everything they've gone through. They're a little bit fearful of diving into it, because I suppose from speaking to people, we all know that there's probably an issue going on in the background, and the more you dive into it, the more you really have to face it. So we can kind of live a life of, I won't say going around in robot mode, not exactly, but fearful of going back into that traumatic experience. For someone who kind of wants to shift into it, they know that it's kind of affecting their daily life. Would you advise them to kind of maybe go to a retreat to start off with, or is it like a one-on-one session, or maybe just start with some breath work in their own home?
It can be very unique for everyone. What I would say is, first of all, you need to feel comfortable with the person you're working with. The same for, we'd say, if you're going to a retreat or a workshop. And the workshops I do, we'd say they're very much based that we're starting from kind of a beginner level and working upwards. We would cover the foundation of breath work, how the diaphragm works, what influences both sides of the nervous system, how we can use oxygen and carbon dioxide and how we balance that. So all those kind of aspects are very important, and people do need a basic understanding of how that works really, in order to, particularly in relation, we say, with trauma. I would say with trauma work, it's possibly a better approach to go to do sessions one-to-one, where it can be very specific to what's going on for that person, where they can get into a space where they can feel safe. And I think that's very, very important. Feel understood. The program and the treatment can be really customized to what they need, because with trauma, you can't really have a generic approach to it. But there is certainly things that people could do at home. They can start with some down-regulating breath work, and that would help, with, say, to manage stress. But again, we'd say it's important to have the basic understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it. so that you're not making things worse. It's important as well to actually, no matter what type of modality somebody's using, is to have some sort of a measuring matrix to see, is something helping you, or is it not helping you, And that's why I say one-to-ones are very good that way, because you can change the direction of what you're doing in accordance to what's coming up as well.
Could you give us an example of what exactly down-regulating breathwork is versus the other side of it?
If we talk about what causes upregulation first, it might actually it might actually make more sense to us, So a lot of time we'd say when we're stressed, for instance, what we'll find is our breaths will change. And what will happen is we'll start to breathe a lot faster. We'll breathe a lot shorter, more shallow breaths, so more upper chest breathing. And a lot of the time we can do a lot more mouth breathing as well. Okay. So even if we were to do some fast breathing through the mouth, what we'll find is that we will get a bit disorientated. We might even feel a bit dizzy if we were to, to do that. And the reason for that is basically that we're disturbing the oxygen and the carbon dioxide balance. And we're not using our diaphragm if we're upper chest breathing. If we're breathing up into the upper chest all the time, we're activating the sympathetic nerves because they're in the upper chest or upper lobes of the lungs. We're going to support that fight or flight response more. That is one aspect. When we breathe diaphragmatically, what I mean by that is we say the diaphragm runs in under the ribs there, and we breathe diaphragmatically, we start to breathe and fill the lower lobes of the lungs, and that's where the parasympathetic nerves are. So the minute we actually change from upper chest to lower to we'd say diaphragmatic breathing, what we'll find is that it's going to start supporting the rest and digest response because it's activating those nerves in the lower lobes of the lungs. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is if we're mouth breathing, we actually blow off too much carbon dioxide. What happens there is we'd say we lower carbon dioxide, the pH in our blood raises a bit, and the excitability of the mind starts to increase as well. So oxygen delivery lowers. So more excited brain activity, lower oxygen delivery. You can imagine how you're going to feel then. You know what I mean? So when we change that around and we start to breathe through our nose, and as we breathe through the nose as well, we can utilize nitric oxide, reserve nitric oxide in our sinus area of the nose. We can draw that into the system. It helps to widen the airways and widen the blood vessels. Breathing diaphragmatically, we're activating those parasympathetic nerves. That's starting to send signals to the brain to activate that rest and digest response. Then because we slow down the exhalation, we're lowering our heart rate. And also what's happening there as well is our carbon dioxide is building up in our bloodstream, which actually helps delivery of more oxygen. And carbon dioxide is a relaxant as well. So it helps to relax the muscles around the airway. So it also helps for bronchial and vasodilation. And then we'd say if we're keeping our mouth closed and we're breathing out through the nose, we're not expelling too much carbon dioxide. So we're letting that carbon dioxide build up more. It helps to decrease that excitability in the brain then. It helps to deliver more oxygen because carbon dioxide is a big part of the delivery of oxygen into our cells and muscles. With our mouth closed, then we'd say with the rest and digest response being activated, we start to have the saliva building up in our mouth, which is another signal to the brain that we're in that rest and digest, we're in safety. And the whole system is working in accordance to the way it should. As well, we'd say with more saliva built up in the mouth, we'd say when we eat our food, we've digestive enzymes in the saliva. So then we say that helps with our digestion as well. So the system is working as it was designed to work. If it's a case that we don't have that saliva building up when we're in that fight or flight and we're dry mouth and we're eating, then we're maybe using water, we'd say, as a way of helping that along. We're not getting those digestive enzymes in, and then we'd say our body is using our metabolic enzymes to try and break down our food, and then we get a slump in energy. And it's just those small little cogs that if they're not clicking into place, what they can have down the road at the end of the day, we can feel quite drained of energy. What we can experience is we can be wired and tired. So we're really wired up, but we feel really tired, and then we can't sleep because we're wired up. It's great if we can do certain exercise like breath work or meditation. In an ideal world, we could go out and we could have a walk and a run and meditate for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It might be some days we'll get to do that, but for a lot of the time constraints can be a problem. What I encourage people to do is to have little mini resets throughout the day, so you're helping those stress levels to be kept quite balanced. They might spike up, but you're bringing them back down a bit. Instead of, we'll say, letting them build and build and build and build, and then in the evening maybe having to spend a lot of time trying to down-regulate, whereas that if we're kind of bringing them back into place a few times a day, that we don't have too much work to do in the evening, then we'd say, to help to wind down. It's very common in modern day life is that we're in that fight or flight mode quite a lot during the day, and we're in go mode, as I call it. We'd say the foot is on the accelerator. We get to the end of the day then, and we're kind of expecting then for our mind to kind of go, okay, it's nighttime now, we'll go to sleep. And it's not getting that chance to wind down. Then people lie in bed and everything starts to rev up, and they're going, well, I want to wake up in the morning, I want to get a good night's sleep. Brings in worry, and then that just creates another problem next day because you're not feeling refreshed. So it becomes a kind of a vicious cycle. So having those micro resets throughout the day can be a good practice as well. It can be a good way of introducing it, because what you're doing is you're training your nervous system to go from that fight or flight to that rest and digest. Our system gets used to that transition from one to the other. If it's a case that we're in that high stress, or it doesn't even have to be high stress, but if the needle, as I said, if the needle is on the side of the sympathetic, the fight or flight all the time, what can happen is we can kind of get kind of stuck in that area, and our nervous system isn't as familiar as it used to be, we'd say, of coming back. So what they call vagus nerve resets can be very, very useful and powerful. Our nervous system is thousands of years old, and it's built for more of our primal living, really. And our modern society really is only a few decades old. Like, even if we take 50 years off of where we are now, it was a lot different type of place with a lot different lifestyle. 150 years ago, like 80% of people were farmers, and that's not, in the scheme of things, it's not a long time. So I think our nervous system is possibly built for a different pace of life. And the thing is that we still have challenges, but we're not running for our life, or we're not fighting our challenges. So when that's not happening, that cortisol and that adrenaline is building up in our system, but we're not actually doing an action to release it. And then it just tends to build up and build up. We might have a release, when we do some exercise and stuff like that, but what can happen there is we're not mightn't be getting the exercise all the time. And the more we say we can align, I don't mean that we go out and we start hunter-gatherer stuff all again, but the more we can kind of align with the way our nervous system was designed, what we'll find is the more balanced we'll start to feel as well. The way we would eat, the way we would self-regulate, we'd say we wouldn't have had as many interruptions either. The likes, we'd say, even artificial light has a big effect on our brain as well. Nowadays, screens are very popular. We're on a screen at the moment, and that is fine. Really, we'd say it's fine in the actual earlier part of the day, or throughout the day, because that's the kind of light we would be naturally taking in at that time, because our brain processes our day and night through the color of light it's perceiving. That blue yellow rays of light are pretty natural from the morning time throughout the day, but in the evening time our body, our mind has to wind down. And if we're showing it that morning light in the evening time, it's getting mixed signals, really. So it gets a bit mixed up to know whether it's morning or night, and then that interrupts our sleep cycle, our circadian rhythm. So it's important for us to even regulate our light exposure. So it's good to get actual natural light exposure in the morning time to really ignite that morning light, so that our brains getting that signal that this is morning. But in the evening time, it's actually a good practice as well to tone down the light, even the lights in the room. It's a limit screen time. It's for definitely half an hour, maybe an hour before going to bed, or use. Now you can get those glasses, we'd say those blue light glasses that help to just change the color of light that you're exposing your eyes to. And that can help with, say, for the whole wind down process. You're feeding into the way the system has been designed to work. Before electricity, we would have been totally regulated through the sun. When the sun went down, we went down. When it came up, we got up. It was a simple process.
Well, much easier to follow, absolutely. The body clock was much better able to get a sense of rhythm from it.
Yeah.
I know I listened to a guy recently who talks about how the new white lights that we have above us are frying our nervous systems, that even before the old, more orange glow of a light was better because it mimicked the evening time a little bit better. Whereas the bright white lights now, our bodies are thinking, and it's because it's above us, our bodies are thinking it's the sun, it's the middle of the day. So he was even saying that these like little lamps, like the salt lamps that are more orange, you put them on the floor, so it mimics like a campfire. So it goes back to your old, more ancestral kind of thought process to mimic that sort of thing, like candlelight. So I thought that was very interesting, very interesting. So yeah, light is such an impact on a nervous system.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and even just having low level light will make so much difference, yeah, because we'd say the thing about it is we have what they call ganglion cells in our eyes, and they are picking up on the color rays of light. So it depends on the angle of the light, which will project a different color, and those different colors then we'd say will activate different organs to be active. It's a very sophisticated system, but simple system at the same time.
Very easy to kind of take things. I think always taking a step back, as you said, the modern world we're not able, we can't adjust as quickly as we would like to how much everything has changed. And now even in the last 10-15 years, we're all on screens for work 24/7, and we're constantly getting bombarded by lights. And the whole idea behind these apps is to keep us on them. So obviously they're making them as much attraction as possible, dopamine hits, everything like that. So I think taking a step away from the screen is the only way to really downregulate, because they are made to be addicted.
yeah and look at, like, you even look at Netflix, will say it's designed to keep you on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You start the series and you go, okay, I'm going to watch one episode, and you find that 3 hours later you're still watching the next one, you know.
Completely. It's an attention economy. They're all vying for our attention, so they have to make these things as addictive as possible,
Yes.
which is obviously frying us deep down, even though we're getting entertained and enjoying it. Not really good for how our nervous system can respond to it. I just want to circle back quickly, because I know you said before about how the foundations are key. When it comes to breath work, obviously in Ireland, a lot of us will have bunged up noses in different type of seasons. You showed me a technique before on how to clear your nose that I can't remember exactly how it goes now. But I remember at the time being like, I was bunged up and you showed me how to clear my nose. So for anyone who wants to kind of get more into the nasal breathing, could you dive into that little technique for us?
Yeah. It's a very simple technique. So we just breathe in through our nose, if possible, if at all possible. Sometimes if it's really bunged up, it might be a struggle. And then we breathe fully out. And then we just keep the mouth closed and we close the nose, and we just do some movement, like moving up and down like that. And we just keep doing that until we get that urge to breathe in. And then we breathe in through, it's important we breathe in through the nose there, and breathe out. So really what's happening there is, okay, we breathe in, we breathe out, and then when we hold the nose, the carbon dioxide is starting to build up. And carbon dioxide is a bronchial and vasodilator. So particularly bronchial dilator is the key here. So it's widening the airway. The movement is just helping the lymphatic system to kind of shift whatever is clogging. And then when you breathe in, we'd say you're starting to clear that airway again. And it's very effective. Now you might have to, depending on how blocked your nose is, it'll determine how many times you have to repeat it. Sometimes you might do it once or twice, it'll be fine. Sometimes you might have to do it 6 or 8 times. The other variation of that, instead of just bopping your head up and down, you can walk around. So you could do it, if you were walking, you have the same effect. You know, it's a real simple but very effective way of clearing the nose. So just a quick recap: breathe in, breathe out, hold the breath, and do some movement, either moving the head or walking around. And then we say when you get that urge to breathe fully in through the nose. Allow your breath to normalize again and just repeat.
100%, because I remember we did it the day of the retreat, because I was so bunged up, and straight away I was like, oh, brilliant. So yeah, no, it's almost instantaneous, what it was for me the first time I tried it. One topic I'd like to dive into with you is, as we're two men here who are speaking about the nervous systems, and through that you can talk about the emotion that comes with it. Men, we all know, are not as good at speaking about their emotions as women. Do you find that breathwork or even the hypnotherapy is a good kind of gateway for a man who maybe who feels overwhelmed in his own life and kind of wants to maybe take a step to kind of work on that overwhelm? Do you find the breathwork and the hypnosis a good intro to maybe start things off?
It's a great tool for people to learn and to use. The hypnotherapy and the other modalities like NLP and QTT, they can be great ways of releasing some of that emotion that we mightn't even be aware of that we have. What happens there is we have experiences in life, and sometimes our first challenge is being born. There can be trauma, birth trauma and things like that. So our mind can hold on to those experiences, and each memory that we have is made up of what we saw, what we heard, and a feeling attached to it. So a lot of the memories even can be charged with those emotions. And then as a protective mechanism, our mind will actually use those memories as a reference point to see how to predict to respond to a future event. So what can happen there then as well is we'd say our mind can associate current situations with a reaction from the past. So then we'd say we're not reacting from what's actually happened to us in the moment, we're reaction to what's happening maybe, or something similar that's happening, but we're reacting from a past experience or past memory, So when we do a release of that emotion from the memory, then we'd say it just really helps us to be able to respond appropriately to the situation. If it was a case that we've all experienced maybe where we've overreacted to something, or we've had a real anger response for something, and we afterwards we go, geez, I don't know why I reacted like that. And that's really because it's bringing up something from the past. And we can't forget the past, and we don't want to forget the past either, because the past is who's created who we are really, and there's lots of positive learnings, there's lots of attributes we develop. Nearly all the challenges we have in our life have served us in some way as well. We've become resilient or stronger, or we've learned something. It isn't about a case of eliminating stress from our lives. It's just a difference of, are we going to carry it with us or not? Like, I always love to look at animals, because animals are so intuitive and so intelligent as well. If an animal experiences stress, if they have an altercation with another animal, or they have a fight or anything like that, they will go and they'll shake their body and they'll shake off all that stress, and then they'll just walk away like nothing has happened. But they won't carry that for a couple of years and do it. They'll do it straight away in the moment. It's particularly in modern day living, because our challenges now aren't life. We're not fighting for our life. A lot of the time we'd say we're fighting for our livelihood. And our challenges are invisible a lot of the time. Their emails, their time pressure, their commitments. We're not running or we're not fighting them, and that starts to build up. If it's a case that we're spending a lot more time sitting down, work has changed quite a bit as well. We'd say it isn't as physical as it used to be, and there's certain muscles in our body as well that contract with the stress response, and sitting actually kind of reinforces that. So we can be holding that stress, that emotion, that trauma even in our bodies. Then back to your question. We kind of went to a big tangent there, but
no, it all works, all part of it, yeah.
But for guys, and I've started to notice a lot more guys are actually starting to turn up in front of me now as well. It's first of all opening that space and becoming aware that they have had trauma in their past. And a lot of the time we don't actually recognize trauma, because there's big T and the small t, we'd say. There's big trauma and small trauma. And the small traumas can be just as impactful as the big ones sometimes. We'd say where we've been, as a child, we've been left out of something, we've been embarrassed in public, we've been left alone someplace and felt that we were unsafe. We could have an aggressive parent and be always kind of on edge to speak up or talk. We mightn't have deep down we know that the parent loved us very much, but because they were a bit on edge themselves, we were a bit on edge. Or we could have the other side of it, where we had an overprotective parent that was minding us about everything, and we started to learn that the world was a dangerous place. You know what I mean? So even in the greatest intention, we can have trauma through small traumas, we'll say, that have big impact, and that can create things like social anxiety, where our mind starts to learn that our normal environment isn't safe. Just recognizing that, and having our awareness to go, actually, do you know what? Yeah, there is some things there that maybe I didn't address, or when sometimes we hold in our response or our emotion. It could have been when, say, in school, where it wasn't appropriate, or we didn't feel like we wanted to cry in front of the class, or we wanted to run out of a space, but we froze. And those things get held in there. So the first thing is for us to become aware of that these have big impact on us, and then just becoming aware that we do have ways of releasing from ourselves. A lot of the time, breath work, it can be one of those bridges to open up our awareness as well, and to open up some space in the body. And I would often say that when people start to breathe better, they start to create more space. And like I was saying earlier, emotion is energy in motion, and the more tightly we're kind of constricted, the less movement of that emotion as well. So that's where we can start to hold it in. So when we start to breathe more fully and start to use our diaphragm, use our intercostal muscles, and we start to create that more space. And that's why sometimes people can feel emotions come up, we say, in a breathwork session, because now there's space for that emotion to actually move. And with the right approach, it doesn't have to be this mad outburst. I often say, like, that sometimes our pressure cooker gets full. We don't need to take the lid off. We just need to loosen the valve and let the pressure out. That's definitely a benefit of breath work. And then we'd say just having the tools and even the mindset tools as well. They all kind of work together in a way of helping us to release the pressure.
Yeah, I love that analogy about the pressure cooker and just releasing the valve as opposed to allowing it to explode. So I suppose we can all become so trapped in what we're doing that maybe doing like a little bit of work every day would always help to keep that valve open a little bit, to stop you getting to the point where you feel like you're going to blow. But I just want to go back to a point you said earlier about in childhood, the little patterns that we can pick up, I suppose, from parents or different things that happen in school. We can pick up patterns and things that we identify maybe as we get older as part of who we are, whereas it's probably something we've just developed from something we've experienced. So if someone was to move into hypnotherapy, how much these subconscious habits that we believe are us can you move past to maybe find your true self, to really dive into who you are without these little patterns that you picked up?
The first thing is that we possibly need to become aware of them. So that can take just a little bit of talk as well. We'd say, and talking about these things can help to bring them out as well. And then we'd say just identifying, I suppose with the subconscious work, is that the hypnotherapy, really what hypnotherapy is just a tool to help to bring us from that kind of high beta thinking down into an alpha brainwave. We'd say our subconscious just becomes a lot more accessible and open, and it can open up just that space for us to kind of be able to become the observer of some experiences. And in that, we can start to learn a lot of kind of insights into ourselves as well. And it can be, we'd say, that we start to see that where I actually attached a belief to an actual experience, So because that happened, I ended up attaching a belief that it wasn't safe to stand up in public or to speak, or that my voice wasn't important. Different things that we can attach to experiences, and they become belief systems as they get conditioned over time. So it can start off that we'd say that we have an experience and we attach a meaning to it. And because we've had that bad experience, the next time we mightn't react too well either, and that conditions it a little bit more, and that meaning gets reinforced a bit. And a belief system is like a table, and the table, we'd say, has legs. And the more experiences we have to support the top of the table, the stronger that table will stand up. So a lot of the time with hypnotherapy, what we're doing is we're helping the mind to actually learn maybe the truth about things a lot of the time, and to challenge those legs, because a lot of those legs were possibly set up at a time, we say, where we were younger, smaller, more vulnerable, all those kind of things, and they don't apply to our modern day. So in one sense, it's like updating the software on the computer or on the phone. We start to update it as we're not working from that time when we were 5. We have grown up, because that's what generally can happen, is that we can start to, a reaction or a belief system can get locked in time, and it doesn't change as we grow up. So we're still working from that space. It can be as well where we've had an experience, and the experience hasn't really had a good conclusion. So in any experience, generally we'll have a safe space, we'll have a challenge, and we'll have a safe space at the other end. But sometimes what can happen there is we have that safe space at the start and we have the challenge, but we get caught in the challenge. And that's what creates that loop of trigger and response. And with hypnotherapy and with some of the other modalities, what we work on is helping the subconscious and the nervous system to actually complete that cycle, so that there's a safe space at the other end. Because it's back to that primal thing as well. So when we were hunter-gatherers, we would go out and we'd hunt, and we might be attacked by an animal, and we'd fight the animal or we'd run from the animal, but then there'd be a safe environment at the other end. So our brain would get a complete cycle, and that would then enable us to go, well, actually I survived that and I've learned these things. But when we don't have that cycle completed in breathwork sessions, what we will do is we will activate the nervous system to a point, and then we'll create a safe space at the other end as well. So the nervous system goes from calm, up regulated, goes back into down regulation. So it trains the nervous system to be able to self-regulate as well. There's a number of techniques that we work with through hypnotherapy by training the mind, and through breathwork for training the body. The other aspect of things as well is our body sends a lot more signals to our brain than our brain sends to our body. That's an important aspect to delve into, because it opens up so much choice for us as well. Because now we can control our breathing, we can control our movement in our body so much, and that can influence how our brain is going to respond. So they say that we'd say that 80% of the signals through the vagus nerve are from body to brain, 20% are from brain to body. And a lot of the time we give I think we give the brain a lot more credit than than what it needs either as well. I think we hold a lot more intelligence in our bodies than we do in our brains a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is getting out of our own minds to get out of our own way and get back into the body to I suppose stop allowing our thoughts to control every situation, because you're not your thoughts, you have to observe them. And it's something I'm working on myself, because sometimes we can just allow the mind to go racing and take everything over, but it's just having tools to take a step back and get back into your body and not allow the mind to be the one running the show.
You were talking about men being a bit slow to do that. Sometimes we'd say we can block ourselves from feeling that in the body. Sometimes we'd say if there's trauma, it can be a bit unpleasant as well. And we push it away. Sometimes it takes a bit of time, and it's about taking it at a pace as well that is suitable for where we're at, and timing can be a big factor,
Yeah, I suppose it's like jumping into a Lamborghini when you don't know how to drive. If you go too fast, you're going to crash. Yeah. You got to start the smaller car to get things kicking off.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy.
Joe, we've had a fantastic session today. Thank you so much. Even for my own self, to be conscious about the breath work. I've done a lot of this work before, but for some reason, I suppose you can get so caught up in your own life that you forget the basics. Even just to be consciously breathing, it's just something to really take away from it, to kind of to I suppose start to down regulate it, become more present. Is there any advice for the listeners that we kind of haven't touched on that you'd like to share?
Well, there's something we say there with people, and a lot of the time what I found before is that I was possibly making things a lot more complicated than they needed to be. And I used to be sharing lots of complex type of techniques and stuff like that first of all possibly took a lot more time, and second of all, they were possibly harder to implement. What I've done lately is I've broken down some five little resets that people can do. Again, we'd say it feeds into just resetting in small intervals and cue points throughout the day, rather than letting that stress build up. So I'll just cover one of those, I can provide a link to a PDF that covers the rest of them. I just call them the workday resets. But the first reset is for those stress moments, or just even just keeping our stress balanced. And it's using three different aspects of things. First two are our breathwork techniques, and the third one is just a mindset shift, really. The first one is what we call the physiological sigh. And we just do it 3 times. And with the physiological sigh, we take a breath in, preferably we'd say using the diaphragm. So we take a breath in and we just pause the breath in for a second, and then we finish that breath. So we top up the breath. And then we take a long exhalation, just like we're blowing through a straw, and make a kind of a sigh sound. We just really extend that exhalation. Okay. And that's that's just a way of resetting our nervous system. So it's the double inhalation. What that is doing is, when we get stressed, the air sacs in our lungs, they deflate. So when we do that double inhalation, we expand those air sacs. So we bring her from a stress response, we could bring them, expand them out, would say. Okay. And then we'd say when we do that long exhalation, it just helps the heart rate to drop, and it just helps us to down regulate. When we breathe in, our heart rate naturally goes up. When we breathe out, our heart rate naturally goes down. So if we extend our exhalation, that will always help us to down regulate, and it'll help our heart rate to go down as well. So that's the first part. So what I recommend is to do that 3 times, and then just follow it up with some nasal breathing, again using the diaphragm, and breathing in for maybe like 4 seconds, and then just breathing out through the nose for about 8 seconds. Again, what that does is it helps us to down regulate. Now, sometimes people might find the 8 seconds might be a bit of a challenge. So if that's the case, just breathe out for just that bit longer. Maybe hold the breath for a second or two. As we hold the breath for a second or two, a bit of carbon dioxide will build up in the system, and that'll help with relaxation as well. But it'll also help when we breathe in again. It'll help for more delivery of oxygen after the inhalation. So just a 4 in and a 4 out through the nose. And then we'd say the mindset shift in is just to focus on our next task. Because a lot of the time we say if we're focusing too far out in the future, we're going into the unpredictable future, and our mind is trying to predict too much. And then it starts to create, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that happens? Whereas if we just focus on the next task, if we focus on the next task, our next task is predictable. So it just brings a lot of reassurance and certainty to it. It just keeps the mind in that kind of more manageable state of feeling more certain. It's a quick little exercise, and it would take no longer than maybe 2 minutes, but just to incorporate it into a couple of times a day. And the way to create a habit is to add a habit to something that you're doing already. They call it habit stacking, because if you're doing something at a particular time each day and you do this at the same time, after a while it'll just become automatic. So that's just one little technique. As I said, there's 4 more with it that I can share with, say, as a PDF.
Yeah, I'll happily put it in the description. For anyone who wants to maybe dive a bit more into the work you do, what social media, email, how would they get in contact with you?
I have two websites. One is joeforde.com, and the other one is powerofbreath.ie. Facebook and Instagram, I'm there as Joe Forde as well.
I can pop contact details and everything in the description. Joe, it's been absolutely fantastic. I've one last question. What does happiness mean to you?
Happiness. I would say happiness, what it means to me is peace of mind, really. Happiness is a mental game. Somebody could have very little and be very happy. Somebody could be a billionaire, and because their company made 6 million last year and only 5 million this year, they could be very depressed. But I think we'd say when we have peace of mind, it makes a big difference, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I listened to a Buddhist monk recently where he was saying you're not supposed to be chasing happiness, you're supposed to be chasing peace, which really kind of sunk home with me, because peace is just level. It's not up and down, it's not the roller coaster, it's just they're a nice basis to have. But Joe, thank you so much for sharing all your insight today. It's been a fantastic, even for myself, to remind myself of all the things that I need to do to stay regulated, because we get so caught up in our own minds that we can forget the basics that we know. So yeah, there's been absolutely fantastic information for people here today. Thank you very much. That was episode 24 of the Survival Project. I hope you got as much from that conversation as I did. It is so easy to get caught up in the noise of modern life and forget that we actually have the tools to help ourselves. Regulation is something that we can actually practice. If this episode helped you, or if you know someone who's dealing with anxiety, possibly overwhelm, stress, or sleep like me, or just feel stuck in their own head, please share it with them. You can find Joe through the links in the description, and I'll also include the contact details for anyone who wants to explore his work further. As always, thank you so much for being here with me. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow the podcast, maybe leave a rating, 5 stars, hopefully. It all helps, and I really appreciate your support. I'll see you again next week for episode 25.